His hand was cold against her throat. Not choking, just resting there like a promise or a threat. Amy couldn't tell which anymore. "You're trembling?" Kang Lee-Ho said, his white hair catching the moonlight streaming through the penthouse window. At 39, he looked like winter itself had taken human form. Beautiful and deadly. "Are you afraid of me, wife?" Wife. The word tasted like metal in her mouth. 3 months ago, she'd been a college student in Chicago. Now she was this, whatever this was, standing in a Seoul high-rise at 2 a.m. while her husband, no, her owner, studied her face like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "I'm not afraid," Amy lied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm angry." Something flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. His thumb brushed her jawline, so gentle it made her chest ache. "Good," he whispered. "Fear makes people weak. Anger makes them survive." Then he stepped back, severing the connection like cutting a wire. "Go to bed, Amy. We have the charity gala tomorrow. You'll need to look like you actually want to be married to me." She watched him walk away, his footsteps silent on the marble floor, and wondered for the 1,000th time how her life had become this nightmare that sometimes, in moments like these, felt dangerously close to something else entirely. But let's go back. Back to where it all started falling apart. 3 months earlier, Chicago was freezing in that bone-deep way that makes you question why humans ever decided to build cities this far north. Amy Harris was in her sophomore year at Roosevelt University, double majoring in business and international relations because her guidance counselor said she was too smart to waste on just one degree. She was 20 years old, finally getting the hang of Korean language classes, finally feeling like maybe she belonged somewhere. Her parents, Gerald and Patricia Harris, had always been strivers. Dad worked construction. Mom cleaned houses. They'd given her everything they could, which sometimes meant nothing at all. Amy was studying in the campus library when her phone buzzed. Mom calling. That was weird. Mom never called during study hours. She knew the rules. "Baby," her mother's voice cracked on the word, and Amy's stomach dropped. "Baby, you need to come home. Now." The apartment in Bronzeville looked the same as always, small and tired but clean. What was different were the two men sitting on their worn couch like they owned it. One was black, mid-40s, expensive suit that screamed money in all the wrong ways. The other was Asian, younger, built like a soldier, with a scar running from his ear to his collar. "Amy," her father said, and he looked 100 years old suddenly. "Sit down, sweetheart. I'll stand." Her eyes locked on the strangers. "Who are these people?" The black man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "My name is Marcus Webb. I'm a financial consultant. Your parents owe some of my associates a considerable amount of money." "How much?" Amy's voice was flat. $300,000. The number hit her like a fist. "What? How, Dad, what did you?" "I was trying to start a business," her father said, hands shaking. "I borrowed from the wrong people. I thought I could pay it back. Baby, I thought." "You thought wrong." Marcus stood, smooth and predatory. "Now your parents can't pay. But we're reasonable businessmen. We're offering a solution." This was when Amy should have run. Should have called the police, screamed, something. But she was 20 and scared, and these men had that look, the one that said running wouldn't matter. The Asian man spoke for the first time, his English perfect but accented. "My employer is looking for a wife. American, educated, beautiful. Your daughter fits the requirements. She marries him, the debt is cleared. Everyone walks away happy." "You're insane," Amy breathed. "This is human trafficking. This is business." Marcus pulled out a tablet showing her a contract. "Look, we're not monsters. The marriage is legal, registered with both governments. You'll live in Seoul, full legal status, won't want for anything materially. My employer is wealthy beyond your comprehension. And after 5 years, if you want a divorce, you can walk away with enough money to never worry again. And if I say no?" Marcus's smile disappeared. "Then we collect from your parents in other ways. Your mother's very pretty. I know some people who'd pay well for." "Don't." Amy's father stood, but the scarred man moved faster, pressing him back down without effort. Please, don't hurt them. Amy looked at her mother. Patricia was crying silently, her whole body shaking. Her father couldn't meet her eyes. And Amy realized with horrible clarity that this was already decided. They'd already sold her. This meeting was just a formality. What's his name? She asked quietly. The man you're selling me to. Kang Lee-Ho, the scarred man said. He's 39, never been married. He runs import-export businesses throughout Asia. Very powerful man. Very respected. Import-export, right? Amy wasn't stupid. She watched movies. She knew what that meant. I want to talk to my parents alone. Marcus nodded. 5 minutes. Then you sign or we start collecting immediately. When the door closed, Amy turned to her parents. Tell me there's another way. Tell me you fought this. We tried everything, baby. Her mother grabbed her hands. We went to banks, to churches, to everyone we knew. These people, they're not just thugs. They're connected. They said if we ran, they'd find us. If we went to police, they'd kill us. This way, at least you're alive. At least you're sold. Amy pulled her hands back. The word is sold, Mom. You sold me to pay your debts. Her father made a sound like a wounded animal. It's 5 years, Amy. Just 5 years. Then you come home, you finish school, you have your whole life. Do I? Amy's laugh was sharp. Do I really? You think I'm coming back the same person? You think I'm going to be okay after being owned by some Korean gangster for 5 years? Silence. Because they all knew the answer. Amy, her mother whispered. I'm so sorry. If there was any other way. There isn't, Amy said, and her voice was dead now, empty. I know. I can see it on your faces. So I'll do it. I'll marry him. I'll save you. She stood, smoothing down her jeans like she was preparing for battle. But don't expect me to forgive you. Don't expect me to call. Don't expect anything. She opened the door. Marcus was waiting, smiling that terrible smile. Smart girl, he said. Let's talk details. Amy didn't look back at her parents. Couldn't. If she did, she'd break. The flight to Seoul was 14 hours of numb silence. Amy sat in first class, which should have been exciting, her first time flying anywhere nice. Instead, she stared out the window and watched America disappear beneath clouds, taking her old life with it. Marcus sat across the aisle, working on his laptop like this was just another Tuesday. Like he hadn't just destroyed a girl's entire future. You should eat something, he said without looking up. Lee-Ho expects you to arrive looking healthy. He's very particular about appearances. I'm not hungry. Wasn't a suggestion. Amy forced down the meal, tasting nothing. Her mind was spinning, trying to plan, trying to find an escape route that didn't end with her parents dead. There wasn't one. These people were thorough, professional. The contract she'd signed was 30 pages long. Every loophole closed, every exit blocked. She was property now. The legal language tried to hide it with words like partnership and arrangement. But that's what it was. She'd been purchased. Tell me about him, she said finally as they began their descent into Incheon. The truth, not the sales pitch. Marcus considered her for a moment. Kang Lee-Ho is the youngest son of the Kang family. His older brothers run the traditional businesses, drugs, weapons, protection. Lee-Ho was always different, smarter, more strategic. He built a legitimate empire on top of the dirty money, tech investments, real estate, international trade. Made himself indispensable. And the white hair? He's had it since he was 25. Some say it's genetic. Some say it went white overnight after something happened to him. Nobody asks him directly. Marcus leaned forward. Listen, Amy. I've worked with Lee-Ho for 5 years. He's not cruel. He's not violent, not to women anyway. But he's cold. He doesn't feel things the way normal people do. His brothers call him the ghost, because it's like there's nothing inside him. No warmth, no empathy. Just calculation. Sounds delightful. I'm telling you this so you know what to expect. Don't try to reach him emotionally. Don't expect love or even kindness. Do your job, play the role, and survive the 5 years. That's all you can do. The plane touched down. Amy's hands gripped the armrests hard enough to hurt. This was it. The end of one life and the beginning of whatever came next. Seoul hit her like sensory overload. The airport was massive, all glass and steel and Korean characters she could barely read despite 2 years of classes. Marcus guided her through with efficiency. No customs issues, no delays. Money and connections smoothing every rough edge. A black Mercedes was waiting. The driver was the scarred man from Chicago, his expression unreadable as he loaded her single suitcase. Everything she owned in one bag. Everything she was reduced to 50 pounds of fabric and memories. The drive into Seoul proper was stunning. Skyscrapers that seemed to touch the clouds. Streets alive with light and movement even though it was nearly midnight. Under different circumstances, Amy would have been enchanted. She dreamed of studying abroad in Korea someday, of experiencing the culture she'd fallen in love with through music and dramas. Careful what you wish for, she thought bitterly. They drove through Gangnam, past luxury stores and restaurants where people her age were laughing, living, free. Then into a quieter area where buildings spread out and walls grew higher. Old money, the kind that didn't need to flash. The Mercedes turned into a private drive. Gates opened automatically. And there it was, the penthouse tower, 40 stories of glass and steel with the top 5 floors belonging to one man. Her new home. Her new prison. He's waiting in the residence, Marcus said as they rode the elevator up. It required a fingerprint to access the top floors. Remember what I said. Be respectful. Don't push. Don't run. Where would I run to? Amy asked. I don't speak Korean well enough to survive on my own. I have no money. No passport, you took it. I'm trapped. Good. You understand the situation. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse. And Amy's breath caught despite herself. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking all of Seoul. Minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her parents' apartment. Art on the walls that looked museum quality. Everything in shades of white and gray and black like color itself was forbidden. And standing by the window, looking out at his city, was Kang Lee-Ho. The white hair was the first thing she noticed. Not gray, not silver, pure white like fresh snow. It fell to his shoulders, which was unusual for a Korean man his age, but somehow it worked. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 1 inch, wearing black slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. When he turned to look at her, Amy's heart did something complicated in her chest. He was beautiful. That was the problem. Beautiful in a way that made you forget to breathe, all sharp cheekbones and full lips and eyes so dark they looked black in the dim lighting. Beautiful and completely, utterly cold. Amy Harris, he said, his English flawless with just a hint of accent. You're younger than I expected. You're exactly as soulless as I expected. She shot back before she could stop herself. Marcus made a choking sound, but Lee-Ho's expression didn't change. He studied her like she was a painting he was considering buying, his gaze traveling from her face down to her scuffed sneakers and back up. I like women with spirit, he said finally. The obedient ones bore me. But understand this, Amy. You can be angry, you can hate me, but you will respect me in public. You will play the role of devoted wife. And you will not embarrass me. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. Mrs. Choi will show you to your room. We'll discuss expectations in the morning. The wedding is scheduled for next week. Just a formality for immigration purposes. Sleep well. He dismissed her with a turn of his back, returning his attention to the window. Amy followed a stern-looking older woman down a hallway, into a bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment in Chicago. When the door closed, she was finally, blessedly alone. Amy sat on the edge of the bed, a king-sized monstrosity covered in silk sheets, and let herself cry. Not loud, she wouldn't give them that satisfaction, but silent tears that tracked down her face and dripped onto her clenched hands. 20 years old, sold to a stranger, trapped in a foreign country. This was her life now. The wedding was held in a small government office with 2 witnesses Amy had never met and a translator who spoke rapid Korean she couldn't follow. She wore a simple white dress Mrs. Choi had bought for her. Lee-Ho wore a suit that probably cost more than her entire education. When the official pronounced them married, Lee-Ho leaned in to kiss her cheek. His lips were cold. "Welcome to the family, wife," he murmured, and something in his tone made her shiver. The first 2 weeks were strange. Lee-Ho was gone most of the time, leaving before she woke and returning after she'd gone to bed. Mrs. Choi monitored her like a hawk, reporting her movements, her moods, everything. Amy was allowed to explore the penthouse but not to leave it. Not until Lee-Ho decided she could be trusted. Trusted. Like she was a dog that might bite. She spent her days learning Korean language apps on the tablet they'd given her. Korean dramas with subtitles, trying to understand the culture she was now trapped in. She read everything she could about the Kang family, though most articles were in Korean and she had to use translation software. The Kang brothers were infamous. The oldest, Kang Dae-young, ran the drug operations. The middle brother, Kang Min-soo, handled weapons trafficking. And then there was Lee-Ho, the legitimate face of the family, the one who made their dirty money clean. But the more she read, the more she realized Lee-Ho was the most dangerous of them all. His brothers were blunt instruments. He was a scalpel. On day 16, Amy woke at 3 a.m. to find Lee-Ho standing in her doorway. "Can't sleep?" she asked, sitting up and clutching the blanket to her chest even though she was fully dressed. She'd started sleeping in clothes, just in case. "I rarely sleep," he said, moving into the room with that unsettling grace. 2, maybe 3 hours a night. It's enough. That's not healthy. Neither is being sold by your parents, but here we are. He sat in the chair by her window, and in the moonlight, his white hair seemed to glow. "Tell me about yourself, Amy. The real you, not the file Marcus gave me." "Why do you care?" "I don't. But you'll be in my life for 5 years. I prefer to know what I'm working with." Amy laughed, bitter. "What you're working with? That's perfect. That's exactly what I am, right? A tool. A means to an end." "Yes." His honesty was brutal. "You give me legitimacy in American business circles. A black American wife makes me look progressive, makes certain doors open easier. Your parents' debt gave us leverage with Marcus's network in Chicago. And in 5 years, you go home with enough money to start whatever life you want. It's transactional. Clean. Nothing about this is clean." Lee-Ho tilted his head, studying her. "You're angry. Good. Anger is useful. But tell me, Amy, what would you have done in my position? I needed a wife. You needed your parents' debt cleared. We both got what we required. I didn't require this." She threw off the blanket, standing now, fury making her reckless. "I required my freedom. I required my education, my future, my choice. You didn't save me. You bought me." "True. But would you prefer I had left you to Marcus's other solutions? There are worse fates than being married to a wealthy man who will never touch you without permission." The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, made something crack in her chest. "Is that supposed to make me grateful? Should I thank you for not raping me? Is that the bar we're setting?" For the first time, emotion flickered across his face. Something dark. "My father used to beat my mother," he said quietly. "Every night for years until she stopped fighting back. Until she became a ghost in her own home. I swore I would never be him. So no, Amy, I will not touch you. I will not hurt you. You are safe here, at least from me." The confession hung between them, heavy and unexpected. Amy sank back onto the bed, the fight draining out of her. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "About your mother. Don't be. She's dead now. She's free." The coldness in his voice when he said it made Amy's skin crawl. This man felt nothing. Marcus was right. He was a ghost. "Why white hair?" she asked, changing the subject because she couldn't handle the darkness in his eyes. Lee-Ho touched his hair absently. "I was 25, overseas handling business for my father. Things went wrong. Very wrong. When I came back to Korea 3 weeks later, my hair had turned white. Stress, the doctor said. Trauma. What happened? I killed 7 men with my bare hands to survive. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. They'd taken me to a warehouse in Manila, planned to torture information out of me. I got free, and I made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. Amy's stomach turned. You're telling me this to scare me. I'm telling you this so you understand who I am. I'm not a good man, Amy. I'm not even really a man anymore. Just something wearing a man's face. But I keep my promises. You'll be safe. You'll be provided for. And in 5 years you'll go home. That's all I can offer you. He stood to leave, but Amy's voice stopped him. Lee-Ho, do you ever wish you could feel things? Like normal people? He paused in the doorway, his back to her. Every day. But wishes are for children and fools. I'm neither. Then he was gone, leaving Amy alone with 100 questions and the uncomfortable realization that she was starting to see him as human. That was dangerous. She couldn't afford to sympathize with her captor. That's how you got Stockholm Syndrome. That's how you lost yourself. But late that night she heard it. Piano music drifting from somewhere in the penthouse. A melancholy melody that made her chest ache. She followed the sound to a room she'd never been allowed in, cracked open the door and saw him. Lee-Ho at a grand piano, white hair falling forward as he played with his eyes closed. And on his face, for just a moment, was something that looked almost like pain. Hey, if you're new here and you're feeling the story, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when we drop more mind-blowing stories like this. And drop a comment telling me what country you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing where you all are tuning in from. Now let's get back to Amy and Lee-Ho's story. Everything changed the night of the ambush. It was week 7 of the marriage. Lee-Ho was taking Amy to her first public event, a charity auction for children's hospitals. She'd been preparing for days, Mrs. Choi drilling her on proper behavior, on how to smile and bow and be the perfect, devoted wife. The dress was stunning, a deep emerald that set off her dark skin beautifully. Lee-Ho had chosen it himself, his first real acknowledgement that she existed beyond being a legal document. When she came out of her room, he'd looked at her for a long moment. You're beautiful, he said, and it sounded like a confession. Don't, Amy replied. Don't pretend this is real. Who says I'm pretending? The car ride to the venue was tense. Lee-Ho kept glancing at her. Something different in his eyes tonight. Something almost nervous? But that couldn't be right. Ghosts didn't get nervous. There will be photographers, he said as they pulled up to the hotel. Smile. Hold my arm. If anyone asks how we met, we say through mutual business associates in Chicago. If anyone asks if you're happy, you say yes. Even though I'm not? Especially because you're not. That's called acting, Amy. I assume you're familiar with the concept. She wanted to snap back, but the car door was opening. Flashbulbs exploded in her face. Lee-Ho took her hand, his grip firm, and led her into chaos. The next hour was a blur of introductions and fake smiles. Lee-Ho's business associates, curious and evaluating. Their wives, whispering in Korean when they thought Amy couldn't understand. She caught words like American and young and strange choice. Let them talk. She'd survived worse than gossip. It was during dinner that things went wrong. Lee-Ho excused himself to take a call, leaving Amy at a table with a Japanese businessman's wife who spoke excellent English. They were making small talk about Seoul when the lights went out. Not just dimmed, completely black. Emergency lights kicked in immediately, bathing everything in red. And then came the screaming. Men in masks burst into the ballroom, guns drawn. Amy's heart seized in her chest. This was it. Whatever Lee-Ho had done, whatever business he was in, it had finally caught up. And she was going to die in a country that wasn't hers. Wearing a dress she didn't choose. Married to a man she barely knew. Everyone down! One of the masked men shouted in Korean. We're here for Kang Lee-Ho. Where is he? Silence. The room full of wealthy, powerful people, and no one was going to give him up. Honor among criminals, Amy thought wildly. Then she felt it. A hand closing around her wrist. She spun, ready to fight, and found herself looking into familiar dark eyes. "Don't scream," Lee-Ho whispered. He'd come up behind her somehow, silent as a ghost. "Do exactly what I say. When I move, you move. Understand?" Amy nodded, too terrified to do anything else. "Good girl. Now run." They ran. Lee-Ho pulled her through a service entrance. Downstairs she didn't know existed, his hand never leaving hers. Behind them, shouting. Gunfire. The sound of pursuit. "Who are they?" Amy gasped as they burst into an underground parking garage. "My brother's enemies. They think taking me will give them leverage." He pulled her toward a motorcycle, not a car. "Get on." "I've never." "Now, Amy." She climbed on behind him, barely getting her arms around his waist before he gunned the engine. They shot out of the garage into Seoul's night streets, and Amy buried her face against his back, holding on for dear life. Lee-Ho drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, running red lights, taking turns so sharp Amy thought they'd crash. But his control was absolute. He knew every street, every alley, every escape route. They finally stopped in front of a building in Itaewon, Seoul's international district. Lee-Ho killed the engine and helped her off, his hands checking her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. And there was something in his voice she'd never heard before. Concern. Actual, genuine concern. "No, I'm fine." "What just happened?" "Someone tried to kill me. Again." He pulled her into the building, upstairs to a small apartment that was clearly a safe house. Sparsely furnished. No personal items. Just a bed and a table and curtains drawn tight. "We'll stay here tonight. My men will secure the penthouse and find out who talked." Amy collapsed onto the bed, adrenaline crash hitting hard. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She'd almost died. They'd both almost died. Lee-Ho knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. His touch was warm for once, not cold. "Amy, look at me. You're safe. I won't let anything happen to you." "Why?" The word burst out of her. "Why do you care? I'm just a business arrangement. Remember? Just a tool you're working with." Something cracked in his expression. That careful control he always maintained, it slipped. "You think I don't see you? You think I haven't noticed how you hum when you're cooking the American food Mrs. Choi buys for you? How you fall asleep reading on the couch? How you talk back to me like no one else dares to?" His grip on her hands tightened. "You think I don't know what I've done to you? I think about it every day, Amy. Every single day." "Then why did you do it?" "Because I'm selfish. Because I'm broken. Because when Marcus told me about you, showed me your picture, something in me that I thought was dead woke up. And I wanted you here, even though I knew it was wrong. Even though I knew I'd destroy you." He let go of her hands, standing abruptly. "I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to hear this." But Amy stood too, closing the distance between them. "No. Don't shut down. Not now. Tell me the truth for once." Lee-Ho looked at her, and in his eyes was a war. Want versus guilt. Hope versus resignation. "The truth is I'm falling for you. And it's the cruelest thing I've ever done to either of us because you can never love me back. How could you? I bought you. I trapped you. I'm everything you should hate." Amy's breath caught. This was the moment. The moment where everything could change or stay broken forever. "You're right," she said slowly. "I should hate you. I do hate you, part of me. But part of me." She touched his face, feeling him tremble under her palm. "Part of me sees a man who saved me tonight. Who plays sad songs on the piano when he thinks no one's listening. Who gave me a choice about being touched even though he didn't have to." "Amy, I'm not saying I love you. I'm not even saying I forgive you. But I'm saying maybe we're both trapped in this thing. And maybe we can figure it out together." Lee-Ho closed his eyes, leaning into her touch like a man starving for affection. "You're too good for this world. Too good for me. Then I guess you'll have to become better." When he kissed her, it wasn't cold anymore. It was desperate and tender and tasted like possibility. And for the first time since arriving in Seoul, Amy kissed back. 3 years passed like seasons changing. Not 5, because some things can't wait for arbitrary timelines. Amy never did finish her 5-year contract. 18 months in, Lee-Ho had his lawyers draw up divorce papers, citizenship papers, and a bank account in her name with enough money to go anywhere, do anything. "You're free," he'd said, putting the papers in front of her. "Completely free. No strings. No conditions. If you want to go back to Chicago, finish school, never see me again, you can. I won't stop you." Amy had looked at the papers for a long time. Freedom, real freedom, right there in black and white. Everything she'd wanted since this nightmare began. Then she'd torn them in half. "I'm not going anywhere," she'd said. "Not yet. Not until we figure out what this is." What it was they discovered was love. Complicated, messy, born from trauma but growing into something real. Lee-Ho worked to dismantle his family's criminal operations, using his business acumen to transition everything legitimate. It cost him his brother's respect, but he didn't care. He cared about building something clean for Amy. For them. Amy enrolled at Seoul National University, finally finishing her degree. She learned Korean fluently, made friends in the international community, built a life that was hers by choice. And slowly, carefully, she and Lee-Ho learned how to be partners instead of captor and captive. It wasn't perfect. There were fights, setbacks, days when old wounds ached. Days when Amy woke up angry about how they'd started. Days when Lee-Ho's guilt made him withdraw. But they kept choosing each other. Kept trying. Mrs. Choi became less warden and more grandmother figure, teaching Amy to make kimchi and gossiping about Lee-Ho's childhood. Amy taught her to make collard greens and cornbread, blending their worlds in the kitchen. Amy's parents called sometimes. She answered maybe half the time. Forgiveness was a process, not a destination. They'd come to visit once, awkward and painful but necessary. Her father had cried, apologized again. Her mother had held her and whispered that she looked happy, actually happy. "I am," Amy had admitted, surprised to realize it was true. "I shouldn't be, but I am." Now, 3 years later, Amy stood in the penthouse that had stopped feeling like a prison and started feeling like home. She was 23, almost 24, a university graduate with job offers from international companies. Lee-Ho was 42, his white hair longer now, tied back when he worked. They'd just come back from dinner with his oldest brother, a tense affair where Dae-young had grudgingly admitted he respected Lee-Ho's transformation. "Your wife changed you?" Dae-young had said in Korean, looking at Amy with something like approval. "Made you soft. Made me human," Lee-Ho had corrected. Now, alone in their space, Lee-Ho pulled Amy close. They fit together these days, her head on his shoulder, his arms around her waist. Comfortable, right? "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about us, about how we started. Lee-Ho, we've been through this. Let me finish. I've been thinking that I can never erase what I did. How I brought you here. The choice I stole from you. But I want to give you a new choice now." He stepped back, reaching into his pocket. Amy's heart jumped. Was he actually? He was. Lee-Ho knelt, a small box in his hands, and when he opened it, the ring inside was perfect. Not huge, not ostentatious, just a simple band with a single stone that caught the light. "Amy Harris," he said, and his voice was shaking. "I'm asking you, no contracts, no debts, no pressure. Will you choose to stay? Will you choose this life, this complicated, strange life we've built? Will you choose me, knowing everything, all of it, and still say yes?" Amy's eyes filled with tears. "You're asking me to marry you when we're already married?" "I'm asking you to marry me because we've never really been married. Not in the way that matters. Not by choice." He took her hand, his thumb brushing over the simple wedding band he'd given her 3 years ago. "This time I want it to be real. I want it to be yours." She should have said no. The therapist she'd been seeing for 2 years would probably say she should think about it, process it, make sure she wasn't just adapting to captivity. But Amy had spent 3 years learning herself, learning what she wanted, learning to tell the difference between trauma bonding and actual love. This was actual love. Imperfect, complicated, born from darkness but growing toward light. "Yes," she said, laughing through tears. "Yes, you ridiculous man. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this. When Lee-Ho kissed her this time, it tasted like freedom. Real freedom. The kind that comes from choosing your own cage and realizing it's not a cage anymore. Just a home you've built with someone who's trying as hard as you are. They got married again 6 months later. Real wedding this time, with Amy's parents there, with Lee-Ho's mother's picture on a chair in the front row, with friends from Amy's university and Lee-Ho's legitimate business partners. Amy wore a dress she picked herself, white and gold, African patterns woven into Korean silk. When the officiant asked if they took each other freely, without coercion, they both said yes. And this time they meant it. This time it was true. 5 years after Amy arrived in Seoul, she stood on the same penthouse balcony where Lee-Ho had first dismissed her like property. But now his arms were around her, her hand resting on her barely their baby bump, their future literally growing between them. Do you ever regret it? Lee-Ho asked softly. All of this, what it cost you. Amy thought about the girl she'd been at 20, terrified and angry and sold. She thought about the woman she'd become at 25, strong and certain and chosen. I regret how it started. I'll always regret that part. But the rest of it, what we built after. No, I don't regret choosing you. The words hung in the Seoul night air, and Lee-Ho pulled her closer, his hand joining hers on her stomach. 3 months along. A girl, the doctor said. They hadn't told anyone yet, keeping this small miracle to themselves just a little longer. But secrets, Amy had learned, never stayed buried in the Kang family. The call came at 2 a.m., shattering the peace. Lee-Ho's phone, the one that only rang for emergencies. Amy woke to find him already out of bed, his face illuminated by the screen, and even in the darkness she could see his expression had gone cold. Ghost mode, she called it. The face he wore when danger was close. What is it? She asked, sitting up. My brother. His voice was flat. Dae-young. He's been arrested. Federal agents, simultaneous raids across Seoul. They got Min-soo too. The entire operation is burning down. Amy's blood went cold. But you're out. You've been out for 2 years, Lee-Ho. You've gone legitimate. They can't. They can investigate everyone with the Kang name, including me, including you. He turned to her, and in his eyes was something she'd only seen once before, the night of the ambush. Fear. Amy, they're going to dig into everything. Our marriage, how you came here, the original contracts. If they find out your parents were coerced, if they classify this as human trafficking. It was human trafficking, Amy interrupted. That's what it was. We don't have to pretend anymore. If they classify it as that, you become a victim in a federal case. I become a trafficker. And our baby, his voice cracked. Amy, they could take her. Social services could decide that a child shouldn't be raised by a trafficking victim and her victimizer. They could decide you're not stable, that I'm dangerous, that... Stop. Amy was out of bed now, taking his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. Stop spiraling. We knew this could happen eventually. We've prepared for this. No preparation is enough for losing you. For losing her. The vulnerability in his voice broke something in her chest. This man who'd been carved from ice and stone, who'd killed 7 men with his bare hands, was terrified. Not of prison or scandal, but of losing his family. Their family. Then we fight, Amy said firmly. We tell the truth, all of it, and we fight. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. And I'm sure as hell not letting anyone take our daughter. The lawyers arrived by sunrise. An entire team, the best in Seoul, the kind of legal firepower that only dirty money could buy. But Lee-Ho's money was clean now, or clean enough. 3 years of careful restructuring, legitimate investments, documented charitable donations. He'd built a paper trail that showed transformation, redemption. But paper trails didn't account for origins. Mrs. Kang, the lead attorney, a sharp woman named Park Ji-woo, addressed Amy formally. We need you to tell us everything. How you came to Korea. The circumstances of your marriage. Don't leave anything out, no matter how uncomfortable. So Amy told them. All of it. Her parents' debt, Marcus Webb, the contract, the flight to Seoul. The first terrible weeks. The ambush. The slow, complicated journey from captive to partner to wife. She told them about the torn divorce papers, about choosing to stay, about choosing Lee-Ho over freedom. Attorney Park listened without expression, taking notes. When Amy finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "This is going to be a problem," she said finally. "The prosecution will argue that your current feelings are the result of prolonged captivity and psychological manipulation. Stockholm Syndrome. They'll say you can't truly consent to a relationship that began with coercion. That's not—" Amy started, but Park held up a hand. "I'm telling you what they'll say, not what I believe. But we need to be prepared for this narrative. They'll paint Lee-Ho as a predator and you as his victim, unable to see clearly because of trauma bonding." Lee-Ho, who'd been standing by the window in silence, turned. "Then what do? We control the narrative first. We go public. Press conference, tell your story your way, before the prosecution twists it. Amy talks about her choice to stay, her education, her autonomy. We show that she's not a victim anymore, that she's a woman who made informed decisions about her life." "No." Lee-Ho's voice was sharp. "I won't put her through that. The media will tear her apart. They'll tear her apart worse if we stay silent," Park countered. "Right now you have a window. Use it." Amy looked at her husband, seeing the war in his eyes. He wanted to protect her, to shield her from the storm that was coming. But protection wasn't what she needed. "I'll do it," she said. "I'll tell our story." "Amy." "Lee-Ho, I've been silent for 3 years about how we really started. I let people assume it was a normal international marriage because it was easier. But I'm done with easy. I'm done with hiding. If telling the truth means our daughter grows up knowing her mother fought for her, then that's what I'm going to do." He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "You're the bravest person I've ever met. You know that. I learned from watching you try to become better. Now it's my turn to be brave." The press conference was held 3 days later in a hotel ballroom packed with reporters. Amy sat at a table with Lee-Ho on one side and Attorney Park on the other. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted questions in Korean and English, a cacophony of demands and accusations. Park called for silence. "Got it, eventually. Mrs. Kang will make a statement," she said. "No questions until she's finished." Amy took a breath. Her prepared statement was on the table in front of her, but suddenly it felt wrong. Too polished, too lawyer-approved. This needed to be real. She pushed the paper aside. "My name is Amy Harris Kang," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm 25 years old. I'm a graduate of Seoul National University with a degree in international business. I'm 3 months pregnant with my first child. And 5 years ago, I was sold to my husband to pay off my parents' debt." The room erupted. Amy waited for the noise to die down, meeting the camera's eyes without flinching. "I'm not here to sugarcoat what happened to me. I was trafficked. That's the legal term and it's accurate. I was brought to Korea against my will, forced into a marriage I didn't choose, with a man I'd never met. For the first few months I was a prisoner, comfortable, safe from physical harm, but still a prisoner." She felt Lee-Ho tense beside her but didn't look at him. Couldn't, or she'd lose her nerve. "My husband, Kang Lee-Ho, did this. He participated in my trafficking. He bought me like property. And those are facts that no amount of love or time can erase. He knows this. I know this. We've spent years in therapy, individually and together, working through the trauma and guilt and complexity of what we've become." A reporter shouted something in Korean. Park shut them down with a look. "But here's what else is true," Amy continued, her voice stronger now. 18 months into my forced marriage, Lee-Ho gave me divorce papers, citizenship, money, complete freedom to leave. No strings, no conditions. And I chose to stay, not because I had to, not because I was brainwashed or broken, but because by then, I'd seen him work to become better. I'd seen him dismantle his family's criminal empire. I'd seen him give me space to heal, to grow, to find myself again. She finally looked at Lee-Ho then. His eyes were wet. I chose to stay because I fell in love with the man he was becoming. Not the man who bought me, but the man who gave me the choice to leave and respected whatever I decided. And then I chose him again when he asked me to marry him properly, no coercion, just love. And I'm choosing him now, carrying his child, building a life that's ours by mutual decision. Amy turned back to the cameras. I know some of you will say I have Stockholm Syndrome, that I'm deluded or traumatized into thinking this is love. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'll wake up in 10 years and realize I've been fooling myself. But I don't think so. I think humans are more complicated than simple victim and perpetrator narratives. I think people can change. I think redemption is possible. And I think my story, as messy and uncomfortable as it is mine to tell, mine to claim, mine to own. She stood, Lee-Ho rising with her. So yes, our marriage started with a crime, but it's become something else, something real, something I choose every single day. And no prosecutor, no reporter, no judgment from people who weren't there can take that choice away from me. Thank you. The room exploded with questions, but Amy was already walking out, Lee-Ho's hand in hers. Attorney Park clearing a path through the chaos. They made it to the car, doors closing on the noise. And then Amy started to shake. I did it, she whispered. Oh God. I actually did it. Lee-Ho pulled her close, his face buried in her hair. You were incredible. You're so damn brave, Amy. So strong. I'm terrified. I know. Me too. They held each other as the driver pulled away from the hotel, away from the cameras and questions and judgment. Whatever came next, whether prosecution or freedom, condemnation or understanding, they'd face it together. That night, Amy's phone blew up with messages. Some supportive, some vicious. She turned it off, choosing peace over commentary. But one message got through first, from an unknown number. I was trafficked at 19. Forced marriage, different country. I stayed silent for 12 years. Thank you for speaking. You gave me courage. Jay. Amy showed it to Lee-Ho with tears in her eyes. Maybe that's why this happened, she said softly. All of it. The pain, the complexity, the impossible love story. Maybe we're supposed to show other people that survival looks different for everyone. That healing isn't linear. That you can acknowledge trauma and still choose the person who caused it, if they've truly changed. Lee-Ho kissed her forehead. Or maybe we're just two broken people who got lucky enough to break in compatible ways. That too. The federal investigation took 8 months. 8 months of lawyers and depositions and scrutinizing every aspect of their lives. 8 months of Amy's pregnancy progressing. Her belly growing round with their daughter, who would be born into uncertainty. In the end, the prosecutors offered Lee-Ho a deal. Testify against Marcus Webb and the trafficking network that had brought Amy to Korea. Provide evidence against his brother's operations. Accept a plea for his past crimes with minimal jail time, served after the baby was born. Take it, Amy told him without hesitation. Do the time. Wipe the slate clean. Our daughter deserves a father with no shadows hanging over him. So he did. 3 years in minimum security, eligible for parole after 18 months. It would be hard, raising a baby while he was inside. But Amy had done harder things. She'd survived being sold, trapped, remade. She could survive this. Their daughter was born on a rainy Seoul morning, perfect and screaming and beautiful. 7 pounds of hope and second chances. They named her Grace, because that's what they'd been given. Grace they didn't deserve but received anyway. Lee-Ho held her for 3 days before he had to report to prison. Amy took pictures of every moment, his white hair falling forward as he whispered promises to their daughter in Korean and English. I'll be better when I come back, he told Grace. I'll be worthy of you, of your mother. I promise. And Amy believed him, because he'd kept every other promise he'd made. 18 months later, Lee-Ho walked out of prison to find Amy and Grace waiting. Grace was toddling now, taking uncertain steps, her hair a riot of dark curls. When she saw Lee-Ho, she squealed "Appa!" and ran toward him. He caught her, lifting her up, and the look on his face made everyone around them pretend they weren't crying. That night, Their small family of 3 sat together in the penthouse that had witnessed so much transformation. Grace was asleep between them, tiny and trusting. Amy's head rested on Lee-Ho's shoulder. "We made it," she whispered. "Through everything, we actually made it. We're still making it," he corrected. "Every day we wake up and choose this. Choose each other. Choose to be better than we were yesterday." Sounds exhausting. It is. But you're worth it. She's worth it. He touched Grace's soft curls gently. "This life we've built. It's worth every hard thing we've been through." Amy thought about the girl she'd been at 20, crying on a plane to Seoul. If she could go back and tell that girl where she'd end up, would she believe it? Would she understand that sometimes the worst things lead to the best things, not because the worst things were good, but because you fought to transform them into something new? Probably not. That girl was too hurt, too angry. She needed to be. But this woman, at 26, with her husband returned and her daughter sleeping and her future uncertain but chosen, this woman understood. Life wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about what you built after the breaking. "I love you," she told Lee-Ho. Simple words, but weighted with everything they'd survived to say them. "I love you too. Thank you for choosing me. Every day, thank you." Outside, Seoul glittered with a million lights. Inside, a family breathed together, imperfect and whole. And somewhere in Chicago, Amy's parents received a package. Photos of Grace, their granddaughter. And a note in Amy's handwriting. "I'm okay. We're okay. Maybe someday you can meet her. But not yet. I'm still working on forgiveness. Amy." Because some things took time. Some wounds healed slowly, leaving scars that served as reminders rather than prisons. And some stories didn't have neat endings, just new chapters that you wrote yourself, one choice at a time. Amy had been sold at 20. But at 26 she was free. Free in the way that mattered most. Free to choose her life, her love, her future. And she chose this complicated, messy, beautiful life. This man who'd been her captor and became her partner. This daughter who represented every second chance they'd fought for. She chose all of it. And that made all the difference. If the story moved you, changed you, made you think differently about redemption and choice and the complexity of love, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment with your thoughts, your own story, your country and your time, because I love seeing this community grow across the world. And remember, your past doesn't define your future. Your choices do. Until next time, keep choosing yourself, keep choosing growth, and keep choosing love even when it's complicated. Peace.